Hello, welcome to Sherva Mate Talks. We are talking about how to change your mind. We, of course, will go using our sort of normal format, which is I'm going to go ahead and describe a chapter in a book that we've been going over. It's called How Minds Change by David McRaney. I'll kind of give a summary of that book. We'll talk about it. We'll go through what the chapter said, and then of course by the end of the stream we'll have people be able to call in and we'll discuss changing our mind. You can either discuss changing your mind, or you can try to change my mind about something. Maybe there's something you think I'm wrong about, and you're welcome to call in and go ahead and make that change. So maybe you heard me arguing about Israel Palestine the other day, and we can discuss that, and we can figure out why you and I might disagree, whether it's factual interpretation, whether it's some bias I have, so on and so forth. You're welcome to call in. We can argue about those things. So I also think we have Earl's gonna call in today, and she's gonna talk some about how she changed her mind about something. So anyway, if you want to come in and chat, don't be afraid to jump in. So the book. So we've been talking about how to change your mind. We've been talking about this book, and it's suggesting on how that happens. And so we go on to chapter 3. And chapter 3 is kind of interesting. He spends a lot of time talking about the dress. You guys might remember the dress. The dress was like some people saw it certain colors and some people saw it other colors, and they couldn't figure out why. I mean, you were like unable to see it the other way. And so you were like always seeing it a certain way. No matter what you did, you couldn't see it the other way. And there were some scientists that did a bunch of research on trying to figure out why this was the case, and they were able to eventually get it figured out. They figured out that it had to do with your mind basically filling in the gaps, right? So you were used to seeing colors in a certain way, and the picture was like not incredibly clear. It was dark, and so your mind kind of assumed some things, and so you went ahead and you would go ahead and fill in the rest. So that's what the dress was. I'm probably not describing that perfectly well, but he basically argued that when we have things that we believe in, that we go ahead and we sort of um, have these belief system, we have a structure, and we fill things in. And when things don't fit, we sort of figure out a way to go ahead and make them fit. And we sort of fix the system in our minds. And so he kind of describes that quite a bit. He does think that we can change our mind. Maybe there's a traumatic event we can have that we can change the structure of what we think about things. And so that was what the chapter was about. I felt like he spent way too much time on the dress, actually, because uh, while interesting and whatnot, it didn't actually have a lot to do with changing your mind. You know what I mean? Like, who cares about the dress that much, as far as the visual aspects of your brain and why you see certain things and why you don't see other things. So that was our chapter. Really short summary this week. I mean, I read the chapter last night. I've got some notes here, um, but that's about it. Let me read this little summary. Belief is rare is change. Belief change is rarely being overpowered with evidence from the outside. It's often about encouraging, encountering enough inconsistencies, whether that's personal, emotional, or social, that one must reorganize their belief framework. So we're usually trying to add things to our belief framework, and sometimes we will actually change our mind, but often we're just sort of trying to slot information in to what we already have, in the same way that with the dress we often try to slot things in. Isa, welcome.
Hey, brother, how are you
Been back.
doing?
I'm doing good. So my summary of our chapter was short this week, so thanks for calling in. And did you want to talk about changing our minds in general, or did you want to discuss a particular topic where you're going to try to change my mind?
I think changing minds in general, I think is cool. I just, I came to drop and I've finally had a break today. I have a break between my classes, so I'm doing a environmental law class next. Funny because you talked about environmental stuff, so I'm doing that. That's my I had to take two environment classes, environmental health and environmental law. So yeah,
Yeah, I wonder if they'll talk about the lawsuits where people are trying to sue fossil fuel companies to make them liable for climate change or whatnot. I don't know if that'll be applicable to anything in your particular class, but
I should
interesting to
ask
see.
that. I'll ask that. I'll ask the professor about that.
Yeah, I don't know a ton about it, but I know there are some lawsuits going on like that, and I don't know about in the U.S. as much. Probably not effective, but other countries there are.
Yeah, I think it's an important thing that pollution's a really bad thing, and it causes a lot more harm and damage. I think people just don't realize the impacts that they have.
Yeah. So, what do you think about changing our mind? What do you think causes us to change our mind?
I think this is gonna sound weird, but I think like emotional experiences have a major thing because I've been looking into ex-Muslim Christians. It's an interesting experience looking at why Muslims leave Islam and become Christian. So I think that that's an interest, and a lot of it comes to do with having a dream, having this powerful emotional experience. I think that is can be a major cause for changing someone's mind.
Hmm. Yeah, I've been kind of arguing the last few weeks, and the book has kind of backing me up, though we haven't finished it yet, that we like to think we change our mind for these super logical reasons, and we're mostly fooling ourselves. We often change our mind for more emotional reasons. I'm not quite I'm not quite ready to jettison completely that we have no logic or we're not, we don't make any like smart decisions off of information per se, but I think we do have a lot of emotion tied up into it.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a huge emotional component. That's what I've noticed. Like a lot of people who do that, it can, like even when I see people who are like liberals who become conservatives, a lot of it is like an emotional feeling. Like they may have gotten hurt by someone like an immigrant. Like, for example, they become anti immigrant because maybe they saw something on the news that emotionally affected them or something that happened in their life, and then they kind of
Mhm.
emotionally tie that to immigration, but it's not necessarily, oh, this is a reasonable logical position. And I think it's the same way too, like a person who might be a conservative who moves leftist, like they'd be like, whoa, like you're saying these people are bad, like LGBTQIA people are bad, and then like I've had a friend who's one and they're not like that, so what you're saying can't be true. So I think those are kind of structures that I've noticed.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Uh, it does seem like the LGBT community, the way they've changed the mind the most effectively is just by having people that are LGBTQ know other people, and then it's not like anything huge. It's not like it was a huge intellectual update to the person that they're talking to, but like, oh, they're nice, and then boom, suddenly the minds change a whole bunch, even though I don't know there was no tons of information that was exchanged that was that much different. So seems emotional.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think that that's like it's a primary element.
So while we're waiting for someone else to call in, that we will see if anyone else wants to join. You and I once discussed at length, I think. I can't remember if it was on stream or when the stream was over,
Uh-huh.
how justified we think the U.S. was in uh, using the atomic bomb in World War II.
Yes.
I'm on the I think we were justified to do it.
Mm,
You, I believe, were on the more we're not quite justified to do it. Is that am I is
that's correct. That is
that's
correct.
correct?
You're right.
So I wanted to kind of explore how we got to our different opinions because let's just start with the facts and see if we have any disagreement on the facts of the matter. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
how many people do we think died in those bombs?
I would say at least tens of thousands. I don't have the number, but I'm lowballing it because I
I'm
don't know
gonna
exactly.
I'm gonna chat GPT it for a second. How many people
That's
died?
cool. That's a good idea.
I got really good stuff.
All right, I bet we're not gonna care about this number a ton. Meaning, like we'll agree with whatever this with throws at us. 70 to 80,000, maybe up to more. With radiation, maybe 140,000.
Wow.
Um,
I was in the
so
right place. I said the tens of thousands. So yeah.
yes, yeah. So I don't have any trouble with that number. Maybe, I don't think we're gonna disagree. I don't think our fundamental disagreement will be about how many people died. Um, how many people, how many Americans did the Japanese kill?
Oh, like in Pearl Harbor. I don't know. And I know there's also the Pacific Island Theater, so that's another, where Japanese and Americans were fighting if we're calculating that as well.
Hmm. So we're gonna see here. Pearl Harbor, 2,400 killed. Um, the total deaths in the U.S. military in World War II were 400,000. But 110,000 were probably in the by the Japanese in the Pacific Theater. Okay, so we don't disagree on that. Probably, I mean, I don't think we have a reason to fight over those numbers. Is that correct?
That's correct. What was the number for the Pacific Island Theater? I mean, I don't have any problem with it. I
Uh,
missed what you said.
110,000 is
Oof.
about
Yeah, so
for
that's
how
quite a
many.
bit.
That's how many Americans died, um, in the Pacific Theater.
Yeah.
So, are there any other facts we even need to establish that we would even disagree on? I'm
I'm
not
not sure.
sure
Yeah.
there are.
No, probably not.
Okay. Let's see if we agree on why w- why it started. I don't think we disagree on that, right? Like,
No. I believe it's primarily a retaliation for Pearl Harbor.
yeah, Pearl Harbor happened, Japan, and what do we think Japan wanted to do after Pearl Harbor? Like, what was their ultimate goal, do we think?
The argument could be that they wanted to do more. That was just one of many attacks.
So, yeah, I mean, maybe we should discuss this, but I think they wanted to take over the U.S. I mean, they were going to control us ultimately, right? Like it was a colonial project or something.
I think that Emperor Hirohito was probably out of his depth in a lot of ways. I'm not going to disagree with that.
Yeah, like Pearl Harbor went, they were winning the war. They start bombing U.S. cities. They win the war. We can't fight back. They defeat us. They essentially would make us a colonial state in some ways. That's my understanding of what they would do. Um, what do you think the U.S.'s goals were with the once we got attacked?
I'm going to be honest. I think it was part of it was vengeance. Same like with 9/11.
Okay. Any other goals? This might be where we start disagreeing. So this is interesting. Do you think what are
I
the
mean,
goals?
I think definitely on the table, one of the goals would be to. Sorry, give me 1 second.
Because I'll throw mine out there while you're kind of transitioning there. I think at least one of the goals we wanted to win the war. I think winning was like the number one goal. We didn't want to be a colonial state, so winning the war was probably the number one goal. And I'm guessing we would have kind of done whatever it took to win. And another goal would have been, you know, we don't want Americans to die. That would have been another goal that we had. Um, and I think winning the war was a more important goal than having no Americans die. Because if we were just trying to have no Americans die, maybe we could have surrendered or something. But I think the goal of winning the war was probably like more important than Americans dying. What do you think some other American goals were?
I definitely think that that's a valid goal. That winning the war is an important thing. I think that's America's kind of signature, is that it's like, well, if we're going to do this, we're gonna win. But I, also, not in this particular situation. America in other wars might be interested in siphoning resources. Like I would say in the Iraq War, that was definitely one of the goals in that particular situation. But in this one, I think it was a mixture of things. There was a lot of heat from, they call it the axis of evil. This idea of Japan, Italy, and Germany, and just kind of the way that it was, kind of portrayed, is that these were evil people that really were going to stop at nothing, at destruction. And I mean, we could see this reflection in like cartoons of the time, like film of the time, how these people were portrayed. They weren't portrayed very sympathetically, and it's because they were viewed as kind of really awful beings that, just kind of like you said, they're interested in global domination. So in winning the war, that would stop the global domination.
And America had good evidence that Japan wanted to colonize us, right?
We have I Killed Earl too, just by the way.
Yes, I see her. She's gonna. Once you and I get to a decent stopping point, which we can't take too long to do, because we don't want to. I think Earl had some explaining to do, but yeah, I was gonna get it. Okay. But we do agree that we had good reason to believe that Japan wanted to it was a colonial project, right? Like they wanted to colonize America.
I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know the full intent on that. I don't.
What evidence would you need to think that that was the case?
I think the evidence that I would need is, I would have to see like written evidence. I would have to see kind of a move, because I think Japan, it doesn't make sense. Like a tiny little country would be able to have such, like, I understand like around the Asian nations that would make sense, that they did do that, but it was expansion into other Asian, like they call it the rape of, was it Nanjing in China? Like that did occur. There was like horrendous things that the Japanese Empire did. I'm not going to deny that, but I think I'm not sure that I think that this person, that the emperor and his entourage really thought they would have the capability of trying to take out United States as a tiny little nation. And bombing Pearl Harbor is not enough, and doing kamikaze attacks is not enough on doing that. I think they were in war, but
So the evidence you're asking for would have been unattainable by Americans, right?
I think so. Yeah.
So there was no way America could have known what Japan wanted to do. What evidence did we have that we could trust? I think the bombing of Pearl Harbor was the evidence, and they were willing to, unprovoked, kill whoever just for no reason. Essentially, that's the evidence the America was working with, right?
But Pearl Harbor was a military establishment, right? It was not just like, I think there were other, collateral damage that occurred, but it wasn't like they're like, hey, we're going to go attack we're not going to attack we're going to attack civilian encampments.
But if you were going to colonize a country, wouldn't you take out their military first?
I mean, that could be, but that's a possibility. That's like war, though, too. I think war, like, I don't think that necessarily Israel wants to colonize Palestine. Initially speaking, I don't think that that's.
Yeah, we don't want to switch subjects, or we'll never get that. But I'm just.
No, but you get my point, though. I'm saying, because similar thing. They're bombing military establishments too, and does that mean they want to do that? So.
Yeah, but it just seems like all the evidence the U.S. had to work on was unprovoked. We didn't do anything. Suddenly bombed, and a bunch of our people died. And another thing, I'm gonna kick you off, otherwise you and I we can go on next week if you can get a break. But another thing I want to start exploring next week is, I think that another thing to consider is how many Americans deserve to die when they didn't start the war.
I mean, I don't think anybody deserves to die. I think that I would say none. I don't think that that's correct, but I don't believe in retaliation just because someone does something that you have a right to retaliate. That's my kind of major issue.
Yeah, but in this, it's not like Japan bombed Pearl Harbor and then left. The war was war. We were in war.
I agree. I agree. We were in
So,
war, and yes,
so next time we'll talk about, in my opinion, on that, America owed Japan no lives. No lives. No, we didn't deserve to lose one more life, whether it was a 24-year-old person of military age with a gun, or a 90-year-old lady. It did not matter. We didn't owe Japan any lives. But we will discuss that more. We'll leave that as a cliffhanger,
sure.
Issa.
That's a cliffhanger.
So
We'll continue. So you
yes.
have I killed Earl, so I'll drop off. Okay.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks for joining, Issa. Hey, how's it going?
Hello.
So, talking about changing our minds, and you have something you want to talk about related to that. Is that right?
Yeah, my can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're great.
My political views and my views on some of the factions within kind of the left view, I can say definitively changed quite a bit. I didn't swing, I wasn't one of those that like got butt hurt and then went Republican or whatever. but
Right.
but there were lots of people that did. And I think I outlined all of this in a very snarky and lengthy blog post, but I was canceled by a really radical, aggressive part of the online left, and it did hurt my fifis a little bit. But I had always kind of had those, like, it was basically because of a difference of opinion. But I definitely got disillusioned by the moral self-righteousness of the left, and saw very clearly that they claimed to be good people that were not good people. And they have done something en masse that had very, very real and very detrimental consequences. And I decided then that I was no longer going to identify as a Democrat or a leftist or a progressive, because those types of people were really toxic. And I can understand why the right, although they certainly have, the right is not amenable to facts. They're fifis over like Trump facts all the time. They claim to be the facts don't care about your feelings party, but they're so full of shit. So I can't go that far, but I definitely would say that I'm kind of aggressively centrist, because I do have opinions that have now they now span the gamut, where I have really strong opinions, but they sit on both sides. And so I really don't, my views have changed so that I don't identify with either party anymore.
So I don't want to spend too much time on this because I have other questions that are more important, but just try to help the audience kind of know the factions. So you have the right; they're super unified. Trump says it; they're
lockstep.
good. That's it. If Trump's for it, they're almost always for it.
Yep.
There might be some disagreements over how much to blame the Jews about this, that, or the other thing, right? Like but mostly, if Donald Trump goes along with it, the right will step in line. They'll always vote Trump. That's it. Okay. So on the left, at least online, so which is like, we understand sometimes isn't the real world, there's factions. So you have, like, I would call the more moderate left, which would be like David Pakman, if anybody's ever watched his show, or Brian Tyler Cohen would be like a boring, normal Joe Biden Democrat. Just to
even
summarize.
Destiny
Destiny would be like very, very says
he's more
outlandish
edgy, but
things. Yeah, edgy,
yeah.
but policy wise,
Right.
he's a boring Democrat.
Mhm,
And then you have people that are further left, and that would
mhm.
be like Hassan is the main guy
The
there, right?
tankies, the
Yeah. So
socialists,
define
yeah.
tankies. Tankies is
Tankies are communists.
okay. So and I actually do know one communist in real life. She's a super great person, but
Mhm.
she would be the only one that I would know in real life that would identify as that. So when you say, when you were saying like, what did you identify as? More like, I don't want to say everything Hassan said or something, but more on the Hassan worldish side or more
No,
in
goodness
the
no.
David
I
Pakman
was
side?
I would have said that I was a social democrat. So I was more on the socialist side of things. And what I've come to discover is that the people that identify as socialists or communists, because that's like the furthest left that you can go,
Mhm.
those people do not, like, they don't vote for Democrats. They're the people that say, like, they're bad on both sides. They're,
Right.
you know, they're, and they actively say things that get people to not vote for the obviously better candidate who's not a sex pest and a felon and, like,
Trying to end a democracy or whatever. So
right, yeah.
before you changed your mind, you would have been a democratic socialist. So but were you still voting for Democrats at that point? You would have told other people to vote for Democrats at
Yeah.
that point still? Okay, so
And
you hadn't got
I still would vote for Democrats because I think that Trump is repugnant.
Mhm.
But if a Republican were to come along, I mean, just because they say that they're Republican, that's
Mhm.
there's not really any, like, I don't know, Republicans don't really have like a platform anymore.
Yeah, it's the Donald Trump platform.
Right.
They can change
Yeah.
their mind about anything. So when you had this view,
Mhm.
um, and then you took a unpopular stance within, I guess, even the David Pakman world. It was unpopular within the David Pakman world.
A little bit,
Um,
yeah.
um,
It was
tons of people got mad.
unpopular, maybe not unpopular with the David Pakman world, but
Okay,
definitely. So I used to be a moderator on The Line.
okay,
Um,
and I associate them with pretty far left. Am I right about that? I don't watch the line
yes, you would
really,
be
but
correct. Yes, I
okay, so
identified with that sort of
okay,
atheist YouTube leftist sort of sphere, and due to my ejection from that particular community and then my rejection from sort of the online left in general,
mhm.
I guess I decided, okay, well, I don't fit in here, so so
So you were like on the atheist left, and they lean pretty far left. They didn't
Mhm,
identify as much with the David Pakmans and the Brian Tyler Cohen and the edgy
mhm,
version of Destiny. They
right.
were even further left, and you kind of agreed with that. And then you
Those are,
posted
I mean, because
something,
I think that Jimmy actually identifies as a communist.
and he's on the line.
Mhm. He
Okay.
owns the line, yeah.
Oh, he owns the line. Okay, yeah.
Mhm.
I don't know a ton
Jimmy
about the
Snow,
line.
yeah. He's
Yeah,
a he's also a sex pest and a
yeah.
disgusting human being.
The reason I don't ever watch anything related to the line is I always thought they were too mean. I
They
don't
are
know if
hateful.
I don't
They
know if
are
they're right or
absolutely
not, but
hateful.
they seemed really mean.
That's actually one of the reasons, that's why I got ejected from there, was because, one, Jimmy Snow seems to think that if you don't present, if you're not an autistic person that presents exactly as he does, then you're not really autistic. And then I asked very respectfully if he could not, like, treat us like shit in the live chat, um publicly, like, if he had something to say to one of us, like, to just do it in Discord, like, that's all I asked. And
Mhm.
he was incapable of, like, handling that. And then the people that were on there, they would go and they, like, if you said anything about pronouns or any of that kind of stuff, then you were a bigot and you were, like, murdering children and you know destroying rainbows. Like, they were so hyperbolic. But then they would also say how awful Islam was while being so aggressively pro-Palestinian, and I didn't understand that either.
Mhm.
Because that's a pretty big part of like what this war is about, and so
Yeah,
you know, it
that's
just didn't make any
so.
sense to me.
You don't have to go through it a ton, but what was the subject where you cross the thing? Did you say something like a little not happy
It was
Palestine enough, or
well, I've never, yeah, I'm not a pro-Palestinian person, but it was actually the trans issue that
oh,
finally did it for me. Um,
so then you get ejected. You can talk
mhm,
about that more if you want, but you
yeah,
ultimately get ejected because of your you didn't agree on the trans stuff,
hmm
and then people are really mean to you, or
hmm
right, you get canceled or whatever words
hmm
you want to say.
hmm
Now, what I'm
Oh,
curious about.
it was a coordinated effort to boot me from the internet. There were people that I can like I know who these people are, and they went to various channels and told them that if they don't ban me, then um they would get people together like en masse to boycott their channels and mess with their ability to make money.
Hmm. So you get that's obviously you're not going to feel good. No
No,
matter
it's not. It
how
it
emotional
was
or
very
unemotional you may
isolating
be,
and
yeah,
very psychologically
yeah.
damaging, and yeah, it
No
was
matter
really
who, yeah,
traumatizing.
no
Yeah,
matter who you are, that's not going to feel very super good. So
right.
what I'm curious about though is, so you obviously changed your mind from those people. I like them. They're kind of my group, and whatever flaws
hmm
they have, I still think they're kind of my pals or whatever.
hmm
To, okay, that's
Right.
not true anymore. Did it cause you
hmm
to change your mind on other political things
Yeah.
that were kind of unrelated? Let's talk about those. That's kind of where I'm really curious about and wanted to get
Well,
to.
I went from being you know, I would have said that I was an ally of the um, you know, alphabet community at large,
Hmm.
and that I was you know, a progressive that kind of believed in these sort of you know, that as a collective we are morally superior to the online right, and that that was that was changed pretty dramatically after how I was treated, where I am not, and I'm not seen as an ally anymore, even though I still advocate for you know, people living their authentic selves. Just don't tell me how hard it is to be a woman when
Hmm.
you've been a woman for less than a year. Like,
So so I assume that if a vote on whether we should have gay marriage come up, you'd be like, yes, I'm pro gay marriage. I assume
yes,
still.
yeah.
Okay, so it's not like you became a Republican
I'm
or
not a
anything.
bigot. Yeah,
Yeah, you
exactly.
didn't become a Republican or anything
Even
like
though they
that.
wanted to accuse me of being a bigot, I'm definitely
Right.
not a bigot. And I
So
still support, you know, trans stuff. I see it as a mental illness. I think that if you don't um and this, I didn't used to believe this, but it dawned on me that if you say that it's not a mental illness, then why do you need health care?
okay, so you're changed your mind on the trans issue. Um, you're thinking seeing the trans stuff differently. Did you change your
hmm
mind on any other political, your ideas about economic change or anything like that?
Um,
Because I'll tell you why I'm probing this.
mhm,
Um, so my parents are and a lot of family members are Republicans,
mhm,
and they are super trustworthy people. Like if you were to
mhm.
like leave your wallet in their car or whatever, you'd get it back with all your money, right? That
Yeah.
kind of thing. Like
Mhm,
super great people, just super fantastic. And so once you find out you think they might be wrong about something, that can be really odd because
mhm,
I probably took on a whole bunch of beliefs that they had because they are really wonderful, trustworthy people. And
mhm,
now that's still the case for my family and whatnot. But you can see how suddenly they're actually not that nice of people, or
mhm,
they're not actually that trustworthy. You can imagine changing your view on a whole bunch of other things, or at least that's what I'm imagining could happen. So I was
mhm.
probing that.
Yeah, my dad went from being a pretty staunch Republican to he still is registered as a Republican, but for very sneaky reasons, so that he and my mom can like cancel out stuff. I don't know. In their head, it makes sense, but
Yeah.
my mom was, you know, a hippy dippy trippy sort of, you know, flower child, and my dad was a post World War II. His parents were Nazis. You know, he grew up being very bigoted and very, you know, it was just a part of his upbringing. And over time, me introducing him to Black people and to gay people, and you know, he's like, oh, okay, this is actually pretty cool, you know. And so over time, I've seen him grow and have his mind sort of blown, and that's been that's been really nice to see. But like this person in the chat who said that if I see trans people as being trans as a mental illness, then it's not that I see being trans as a mental illness. I see the body dysphoria is obviously a mental illness. It's in the DSM, you know. So to say that there's nothing wrong with them, then you're negating their entire reason for advocating for healthcare. And I advocate for them to get healthcare. So I'd say I'm pretty damn supportive. I'm just realistic. I'm tired of people gaslighting the entire population into believing things that are obviously not true.
So tell me about any of the other things you consider changing. I think about economics a lot. Maybe you don't care about economics, but I mean, did your view on any of that change, or did you cause to rethink any of that, or not?
Economics.
You know,
I don't know. I can't really pinpoint anything. I mean, obviously, I've never been a fan of like trickle down economics or any of that kind of shit. But I definitely see where, this has changed a little bit. My views on immigration changed quite a bit.
From what to what, and in what time frame? Like, when did you kind of start making the change?
Over the last, I'd say, year or two, I've seen in my community, the very apartment complex that I live in has now been taken over by immigrants, sort of South Asian immigrants, where people are coming on those visas that the rich
H1.
people. Yeah. They're coming over here to fill those positions, but so they're bringing their families, and then they have lots of babies, and then you know it's becoming a real issue here to find housing, and my rent has gone from $1,100 a month to $1,800 since 2019. And over that time period, I've seen a dramatic increase in the South Asian population in this whole city. And what is happening is that they're taking, because there's a big, I live in like the Research Triangle of North Carolina. So I live within 30 minutes of 5 enormous cities, and there's tons of data things that are happening around here, tech jobs. So they're coming here to fulfill those tech jobs, and then, you know, they stay here for 3 to 4 years or whatever, and then they save up all their money, and then they go back. So that money, I guess this is probably an economic change that I didn't realize was happening, but they're taking all of that money, and because they're sort of hoarding it, and then they go to another country with it, they're taking it out of circulation in our country, which has a real detrimental effect on sort of the GDP and the like some metrics and stuff that are I don't know all of I'm still learning about all of the different things, but taking it out of our economy is having some real detrimental sort of some effects, and the housing market here has skyrocketed, and it's because they've all these immigrants are coming in. Now, let me tell you, them personally, I don't obviously don't have an issue with, but I do have a very serious issue when people that are local here can't find jobs because they're immigrating all of these people to work for dirt cheap and to do these jobs that then take, the American dollar out of our economy where it doesn't get recirculated back here to, sort of even things out and stuff. And so that was something that I didn't realize that my views have definitely changed on.
And that was more, you think, because of your personal experience with the apartment complex and where you live than the
Yes.
canceling on
it wasn't just that, because Republicans they're just racist and they're just assholes, so, but I've actually seen where the issues that they claim to have on the left, they claim to have it because they're assholes, but I'm actually seeing it in real life. And so I can kind of understand like why they're concerned about it, but the real reasons for their concern is nefarious and dishonest. But it is an issue. It is an actual issue that the online left it refuses to acknowledge. And then when I say stuff like what I just said, then I'm just a racist and I'm,
Yeah, well, a couple of things we probably don't want to argue too much because depending on how much you've looked into it, you may not feel it's too fair, but a couple of things to consider. There are a lot, and you probably kind of know this, but like there are lots of super nice Republicans out there. Their policies might be super bad. I'd super disagree with them. Talking yourself into voting for Trump, I have a really hard time with. But if you just talk about like if you met them and hung out with them like on a personal level, they could be really nice. You probably already know that.
Yeah, the label Republican I don't have an issue with. And actually I do have, because I live in the South. I live, I'm surrounded by Republicans. But if you voted for Trump the first time, I can forgive you. The second and third time, I can't forgive you because you knew what he did the first time.
Yeah.
And it's you can't. You can't. And I can't square that in my head.
Yeah, we don't
especially
want to
the third time. I definitely can't get it the third time.
We don't want to get stuck on this too long, but I had a discussion with someone one time. It's like, well, no, you could have a neighbor that voted Trump all 3 times. That would be a significantly better, nicer, more, a polite, more considerate neighbor than a person who voted for, for Biden every time. That's totally
you can
possible.
say that, but they're voting against a lot of people's interests, including their own. Republicans have been voting against their own interests for decades.
I completely agree the voting's all wrong, and it's
right. Personally, they might be nice people.
Exactly. And so what sometimes can really mess people up is they'll think, oh, Republicans are all terrible people, and then they meet one and they go, oh, my whole worldview is crashing down because I thought Republicans were all terrible. No, Republicans are all terrible people. They just currently are voting for someone with current, terrible policies, and why they're doing that or why they're not, why they're doing that or not doing it. You could just, each one might be different, but those Republican people that are making the poor choice, or what I think is a poor choice, doesn't mean they personally are like.
I also don't understand how, when you literally have the entire knowledge of the whole universe, at least as far as we know it as current, at your literal fingertips. I don't understand how stupidity still exists.
I think it's a super big emotional connection. So maybe your opinions haven't changed too drastically, but like just saying like these people are all my friends and now they're not all my friends anymore, like has caused you to view the trans issue, like with more nuance or however you want to say it, right? Or not in quite the same way. Like maybe at some point, not that long ago, you also may have jumped on somebody for not being pro positive positive enough on the LGBTQ community. Like it wouldn't have been that long ago. You may have kind of jumped on the bandwagon, right? And
Yeah,
in
I mean,
hindsight,
I was sort of
you're saying, what was I doing? You know, why was I
yeah,
being so
I
hard
was
on
definitely
people?
sort of a blind, like, you know, if anybody said it, like, I am on Modern Day Debate quite a bit in the live chat, and that place can be a fucking cesspool in the live chat. And I kind of got to a place where I was like, this doesn't feel as toxic as it used to. And I definitely think it's because I've become far more nuanced about the
So,
social issues.
so you might be able to be at least slightly more forgiving. Not maybe not you personally. I'm not even trying to say that you personally have you need to consider this. I'm just saying like we as people need to understand when we meet a Republican, we need to keep that in mind. That someday
Mhm,
we're going to look it back as something we believe now and go, "What was I thinking?" You know what I mean?
mhm,
But back to the immigration issue.
mhm.
So your personal experience with that has caused you to change it, and so now your view on that. Where would you put it? Like we need to have less immigration, or we would need
I
to have
think,
less H-1B1 visas,
yeah,
or
I would say the latter. And I think, you know, obviously I don't blame the immigrants for this. I come from immigrants. I am very aggressively sort of pro immigrant because I wouldn't exist here. And my grandparents were not well received, you know.
mm-hmm.
They were Nazis. They you know, there was a big like anti-German sort of movement at the time. Um but I definitely see it as an issue with the companies that are advocating and abusing this system,
Hmm.
that I didn't realize existed before. And
Okay.
whereas before, because I was so aggressively sort of pro immigrant, I would have just sort of been, you know, kind of all on board with it,
Right,
and
right, right.
maybe attack people that, you know,
Yeah.
didn't like were anti-immigrant before. I don't do that anymore.
So, something to think about. And you know,
Mhm,
it's not like you've like looked into this a ton, so I don't want to try to treat you like you know you should have thought about all this stuff. But
mhm,
part of what makes China so powerful
mhm.
and prosperous is because they have a lot of people, right? So
And they're
having
all uniform.
they're all uniform, but a
Yeah,
lot helps too, right? Like
a lot helps too. Yeah.
who's going to be the next economic power? We're like,
Mhm.
India. Why? Because
Yeah.
they have a lot
A
of
lot of
people.
people.
A lot of
Yep.
people. Okay. So we kind of, I sort of have this general sense in which having a lot of people in your country could be a positive thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so
But the
having
thing
have
is with that visa is that they're not permanent residents, right? They
right.
sort of come here and they stay for a couple of years and then they leave. And in that,
Some of them probably don't leave. They stay if they can,
some
right? Or
of
they
them,
get
yes,
married.
but the vast majority of them do not stay.
Yeah. So the negative, let's talk about the negative consequences. So the um the housing being more expensive. I mean, I don't know how much you've cared about to look into this, but in my opinion, the reason housing gets more expensive is the same everywhere in the whole country. It's always the same, and it has nothing to do with the federal government at all. Has nothing to do with anything they ever do with immigration or any policies the federal government has. In my opinion, it's because of this. Current homeowners want the values of their homes to go up,
Yeah.
and so therefore, they
Hmm.
do not want any housing to be
Right.
built no matter
Yeah.
what. So the
Hmm.
day that you own a
The
house,
YIMBYs.
you
Yep.
start voting to have no more houses built. The
Hmm.
only houses you want to be built are huge, super expensive houses. You
Hmm.
do not want anyone poorer than you to live anywhere near you.
Hmm.
Because even if there's a 0.005 chance that crime will go up, you don't want it, right? So you want 100% chance
Hmm.
that crime will, even if it's almost like just like almost no way it's going to be bad, you still are going to be against it. So therefore, you cannot build cheap housing. So therefore, if the population in America grows, which we kind of understand on a macro level, it makes a country more powerful to have more people.
Hmm.
If a population grows, you refuse to build more housing, it's bad. And so, in
Right.
my opinion, whether those people came from H-1B1 visas, immigration, or just we started having everybody started having a bunch of kids. I think that's like the entire problem with the housing costs,
Mhm.
in my opinion. So I wouldn't so for me anyway, that makes it so I wouldn't reform the H-1B1 process at all, because the issue isn't that wouldn't fix the issue. The issue is we need to build
Well,
more housing.
it affects, it's directly affecting housing here. I live in an apartment,
Yeah.
and so it's affecting the apartment livers like me,
Yeah.
who
And
have owned houses in the past but no longer ever want to own, because I don't want to deal with broke, like if my shit breaks, I want to be able to call somebody and it's part of my rent. I don't want to mow lawns
sure.
or do any of
Yeah,
that kind of
sure.
stuff.
Yeah.
And that market is directly affected in my city by that.
But the reason that
Because
they don't
apartment complexes are being built, so it's not that, but they're not being built fast enough, and
Right.
and then because they're not being built fast enough, and because the zoning laws, like you were talking
Oh
about,
yeah,
are
the zoning,
so,
that's what it's all about,
zoning
man.
is a huge problem. The older the city, the worse it is too.
Yep.
That creates a lot of barriers if you want to live anywhere like within sort of city limits. Then yeah, but because there are so many, I mean, the demographics of my apartment complex are totally different than they used to be. And it was really diverse here. But there's cultural things that are also a little problematic. There's a lack of respect for public space that has happened in my apartment complex that I find a little bit intolerable. Um, but
But at least, I mean, if the local governments wouldn't refuse to let, I'm not ultimate free market, but in this particular case, the
mhm,
local governments everywhere in the country are refusing to let the free market solve this problem. Because
mhm,
if the free market were allowed to solve this problem, they would just build more stuff, and you would move
mhm,
to somewhere where that fit with how you enjoy living, right? And you
mhm.
would probably be like, I don't care if people from Venezuela have a different way of living. I don't care. They can
Yeah.
live however they want, right? But
Mhm,
I'm gonna choose. But because the local governments have artificially
mhm.
refused to allow
And
this to
local
happen.
companies, because there are huge companies here that are exploiting these workers, and they're paying them dirt cheap, and then people that are graduating from colleges that are very near here can't find work.
I mean,
And
his
there's sneaky little things that they're doing, where because they have to publicly advertise these jobs online, but they do them in really obscure job market online job market forums, so that they can claim that they've put it online and that it's public. Because there's some kind of regulation where you have to get the local pool of workers first before using the H-1B stuff. And so because they're only using these teeny little job market things, nobody then applies for them, and then they can use their H-1B workers.
but no American wants any of those jobs, right? Because they don't pay
No,
enough.
they do want these jobs. These are tech jobs.
Okay, so they're hiring people. So
Yeah.
the reason I have a hard time getting too worried about this is because, well, we'll see here in the next year if it's still true, but at least, as of 3 months ago and still probably true, unemployment in the US is low.
It's rising.
Right. But
I'm
probably
and
because of probably
I'm
because of tariffs. Probably because of tariffs.
I don't
But
think it's just because of tariffs. I can't find work. I'm a dental hygienist. I do fill-in work. I used to be able to fill my schedule 3 times over.
are
I
they
worked I mean, I needed to ask for help from my parents for the first time in ever, because I
mhm,
couldn't pay my bills. I don't know
mhm.
what's going on right now, but
Do
yeah,
you know if it's more of a local thing in your town, or do you know?
I don't. The high dental hygienists are in very high demand. Um, there was a mass exodus after COVID happened, where hygienists left en masse and did not return. And those numbers will not recover for another 10 years.
Mm.
So our wages increased dramatically because they, these dentists had been paying us the same, $30 an hour for 20 years. And we finally, as a collective, went, yeah, okay, screw this. And so now we've doubled that. But now I see online all the time that dentists are, they're doing their own hygiene. They're not even hiring dental hygienists anymore, thinking that they can do our job, but they cannot. And so they're directly hurting their patients by doing it, but they're saving $1. So to them, it's justified.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, so what's always difficult in a discussion about certain things is, when I think about economics, I don't think about my personal situation at all. I try not to, because the country's so big that when I talk about what the federal government should do, they can't do anything for any individual person. You know what I mean? So I just have to look as unemployment. I have to look at the unemployment number where that's
Right.
at.
But it's rising.
It is. I mean, even in the IT stuff that I do, tariffs are bad. Nobody wants to spend money in a certain environment. So.
And there was another, when COVID happened, they hired a ton of, techie sort of stuff, and then laid them all off, and then hired them again when all the AI stuff was going like real hot, and now they're laying them all off again. And that's
sort of that's normal, pretty normal stuff. Now, I mean, why it happened this time's unique, but hiring a whole bunch of people and then firing them and the people that build planes, that happens all the time, right? They get a contract, they hire a whole bunch of people to build planes, Boeing or whoever, and then they don't have enough. Then the contract ends and they fire a whole bunch of people, like cyclical.
Yeah, I mean,
that happens all the time.
This was a bubble.
Yeah,
that on a national scale that happened. Yeah. And there were incentives that the government put in, tax write-offs and stuff like that expired with Trump. So
yeah, and another thing to another sort of thing I think about with the shoot, I lost it. I was gonna say just like a big picture thing about economics. Money leaving the U.S. So I have this view of how money is created that goes like this. I think that money is just completely made up, and the reason it has value, in my opinion,
because we give it value. Yeah.
Well, I actually think it's a stronger reason, not just because we care that it has value. It's because the government collects taxes in it, and they have guns. So the reason it has value is because there's somebody with a bunch of guns that says, you have to give me this, and if you don't, I'm sending you to jail, right? And therefore, that's why the U.S. dollar has value. So therefore, we can print. How many we print is just completely made up. We just get to make up how much we print, and so obviously, if we print too much, we get inflation, and that's bad. So you can't print, eternally, right? You have to print based on how much. But when dollars go overseas, we never run out of dollars. Like that's so. I don't we can't run out of dollars. We can just make more, right? And then when all the dollars go overseas and people use dollars, I actually tend to think that makes America more powerful because they are now depending on our currency.
Right, I mean? But it's not being circulated like it normally is.
That's true. There wouldn't be as much internal circulation, but if we didn't have enough money circulating, that's super easy for us to solve, and that we could just print more.
Right, but then inflation goes up.
That there's always
and then interest rates go up.
It's always a balance, right? You say I'm going to lower interest rates and put more money in. I'm going to raise interest rates. I'm going to take money out. I'm going to lower taxes, and that puts a bunch of money in. I'm going to raise taxes, that puts money out. So anyway, if there is a mechanism for the money to go out of the U.S., that's fine. We have mechanisms to put it back in. So I guess I don't personally worry too much.
What are those mechanisms other than printing money and raising?
Yeah, so if the money leaves, you can
prices of everything. I don't see that as being a good.
You just lower interest rates,
solution.
right? You can, if there's not enough money in the system, you lower interest rates, and then there will be more money in the system.
Right. So what do you do when you raise taxes or lower taxes and then money's going out of the economy and then your interest rates, your inflation skyrockets, and because of corporate greed, they're not ever going to go back down.
Yeah, if all the money is leaving because foreign workers are sending it away, and all the money's leaving, and then we print more money, inflation won't go up because we didn't add any more money to the economy by printing it. Does that make sense? Like we could make it as it would be equal. Because a certain amount of it goes out in sending it to the foreign countries, and a certain amount of it gets printed. What causes inflation is too much printing for how much ability your economy can handle that much money, right? The bigger your economy is, meaning the more people you have working and things like that, the more products you're producing, the more services you're providing, you can handle more money in the system. And so during COVID, we not only put more money in the system, but then we also, because of all the trading that wasn't able to happen because of all that problems, our economy shrank, but then we put more money, so that was inflation, right? So you want to keep that in balance. So in my opinion, maybe I'm wrong about this, when money gets sent overseas by foreign workers, I don't think that's a huge issue, because we could print more if our issue was we didn't have enough. And actually, at some points in American history, it's possible we didn't print enough. We were too conservative and we should have printed more. That's not an issue currently or lately, but it's possible that it could be an issue. But I have to go. It's 1 o'clock. I got to go back to work. So great to have you on. Great to chat. Everyone in the chat, we'll see you next week. Next Thursday, we'll talk about Change Our Mind. I'm hoping the chapter in our book will be more interesting next time. And if you want to call in and you want to change my mind about something, you want to argue about Palestine or economics or whatever it is, you're welcome to try to change my mind. And Earl and I, if we would have kept going, eventually I was going to ask you about our motivations, but I think you described those. So it's very, very interesting. You have this motivation, you're interested in your house not going up so crazy amount, your apartment not going up in rent so much. It's like a super personal issue. That's not just a esoteric thing, right? You're like, well, I want to be able to find a job. That's a personal thing, So
stuff that actually directly affects my life. A lot of stuff that you see that people are all up in arms about, even stuff like immigration and the trans issue and all that kind of shit, doesn't actually affect anybody's life. It's just noise that people are saying, so they think that it's really important, but when it actually affects you personally,
and one thing that affects us personally is if we don't jump on with what our friends are saying, our friends will be mad at us. That affects us personally.
So
absolutely jump on.
I've had lots of really scary and aggressive fights with people about the Palestinian issue, because I'm not one of those that is in lockstep with the pro-Palestinian cause, and I have guilt. I have Jewish guilt because of what my family did. So
Interesting. Well, I gotta go back to work, Earl. Great to have you. You're welcome to come back anytime. We'll be back here Thursday at the same time. If anyone would like to call in, chit chat, that'd be great. Otherwise, goodbye, and we'll be seeing everyone later.
Bye.